My name is Emilia, and I am very excited to open today's launch of the YPS and YDN thematic paper. And this paper was actually developed through a very collaborative effort between the United Nations Office for Disarmament Affairs and the Y4D alumni. And it really sets out to explore how we can strengthen the synergies between youth peace and security and youth disarmament and non-proliferation. So today is an opportunity to build on this paper and start a conversation on how these agendas can be better connected in practice. So the YPS YDN paper that we're launching today was really also developed in response to a clear gap that we saw. So while these two agendas share many of the same foundations, they are still often advanced on two totally separate tracks. At the global level as well, the Security Council Resolution 2250, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, give us a historic foundation for the youth peace and security agenda. But where disarmament appears in this resolution is mainly through a narrow lens of disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration, also known as DDR, not as a part of a broader disarmament and non-proliferation agenda. So this paper was developed to help close this policy gap. And that's really the idea at the heart of this event today, is building bridges. So I wanted to illustrate this with a few building blocks that I have here as well. Hopefully you can see them. Each block, of course, matters on its own, but a bridge can never stand just on one block alone. It takes many different pieces that are carefully connected, that are held together by a shared purpose. So here we have YPS, Youth Peace and Security, and here we have YDN, Youth Disarmament and Non-Proliferation. These two are important blocks, but if they remain separate, we will miss the full picture. Disarmament is not separate from peace and security. It's actually a tool that we can use to build peace and security. And it contributes actually to the 5 key pillars of the Youth Peace and Security Agenda, which include prevention, protection, participation, partnerships, and disengagement and reintegration. So as a connector between these two blocks, we have meaningful youth participation. So when young people are meaningfully included and engaged, they do not only participate in the conversations, but they help to shape these agendas and bring the evidence-based, the creativity, the lived experience, and new forms of advocacy into the mix. So this is also something what the UNODA Youth4Disarmament program has helped make possible since the launch in 2019. It's a growing network of young people across the world contributing to disarmament and non-proliferation and showing in practice how meaningful youth participation can advance peace and security. So in that same spirit today, this event is also another important moment for youth leadership. Alongside the launch of the thematic paper, we're also very pleased to mark the launch of the 3rd edition of the Youth4Disarmament Champions Initiative. So to conclude, I would like to express our sincere appreciation to the Republic of Korea for its continued support of the Youth4Disarmament program, including the work on the synergies. And we're also very grateful both to the Republic of Korea and to the European Union for supporting the 3rd edition of the Youth4Disarmament Champions Initiative. I would also like to warmly thank the Youth4Disarmament alumni who have brought their expertise, their practical examples, and all of their enthusiasm and motivation to help shape both the paper and today's event. And with that, it's really my pleasure to hand over now to our Master of Ceremony, Ms. Martina Soja, Youth4Disarmament alumna and doctoral researcher, who will guide us through this event today. Martina, over to you.
Thank you very much, Emilia. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone joining us from all around the world. And yes, once more time, thank you, Emilia, for introducing me. It's really my pleasure to be a master of ceremony of today's event. And as you perfectly said, we meet today to bring together those two important milestones. So firstly, the launch of the first of its kind thematic paper, which explores the synergies between the YAF peace and security and YAF disarmament and non-proliferation agendas. And secondly, the launch of the new Youth4Disarmament Champions Call for Actions. So it will be definitely very intense event. So please stay with us till the very end. I'm sure it will be very enriching for each of you. I think that we all witness that international peace and security face growing challenges. And I also believe that we are all disappointed with the outcome of the 11th NPT Review Conference. But what we also can see is that young people continue to demonstrate that they are not only the stakeholders in discussions of those type, but active contributors to solutions. And I think this is also what we are trying to discuss today, is that, very often our YAF efforts are discussed through separate agendas and in separated space. And today's event have the clear goal, which is inviting us to look beyond those divisions. So our thematic paper demonstrates that those two agendas are not parallel conversations, but they really mutually reinforce each other. And the goal is to have more inclusive, preventive, and sustainable approach to peace and security. And I think this is also the very core of this, the paper and the event and the call, that we are really focused on not theory, but on the action. We would like to highlight the examples, the lessons that we learn, and concrete recommendations showing how young people are already building those connections in practice, and how institutions, member state, and civil society can better support and strengthen this work. So the second pillar of today's event builds directly on this message. So I'm happy that later in the program, we will introduce the third Youth4Disarmament Champions Call for Action. And over those next 90 minutes, we will explore the paper, the key findings. We will hear reflections from YAF experts and member state representatives. We will learn more about the Champions program, and we'll conclude by identifying practical actions we can all take moving forward. So with that, I'm very happy to invite Sharon and Yorgo to present the key findings and the recommendations of the thematic paper. So Sharon Lin Kim represents Friends of the NPT and is UNODA Youth4Disarmament alumna, and Yorgo Elbayev, a coordinator at IGEM and also Youth4Disarmament alumna. So Sharon and Yorgo, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. My name's Lynn, and together with my fellow Youth4Disarmament alumnus Yorgo, we're presenting the key findings of the thematic policy paper, Crossing the Bridge Between Youth Disarmament and Non-Proliferation and Youth, Peace, and Security, from Parallel Tracks to Sustained Collaboration. This paper identifies concrete operational synergies between two agendas that share many common objectives. Next slide, please. One of the key strengths of this paper is that it's grounded in youth expertise, lived experience, and concrete program examples. The analysis draws on UNODA expertise, as well as contributions from 24 young peace and security experts, including Youth4Disarmament alumni, young diplomats, scientists, grassroots peace builders, and etc. Contributions reflected broad regional representation as well, from Asia and the Pacific, Europe, the Middle East and North Africa, Latin America and the Caribbean, Sub-Saharan Africa, and North America. The paper also benefited from a global virtual consultation involving more than 100 young people. As part of this consultation, approximately 20 young people participated in a dedicated thematic discussion on the synergies between the YPS and YDN, helping validate the paper's overall direction and key messages. This is important because the paper does not simply discuss young people as stakeholders, but instead it treats them as experts, practitioners, and partners whose lived experiences help identify where collaboration is already happening and where barriers remain. Next slide, please. The paper's main finding is that YPS and YDS already overlap in practice, but yet they don't systematically overlap in policy, programs, or sustained follow-up. Despite their shared goals, these agendas are often implemented separately, and the paper argues that this separation is a big missed opportunity. A stronger collaboration between YPS and YDN can help advance both agendas. Rather than treating them as parallel tracks, the paper proposes a practical bridge that can translate shared goals into sustained collaboration. Meaningful youth participation creating synergies between the YDN and YPS agenda further facilitates transition from individual initiatives to sustained policy uptake and practice. Across all bridges, meaningful youth participation, inclusion, and a do-no-harm approach are treated as cross-cutting principles. Next slide, please. The paper demonstrates that disarmament can advance outcomes across all 5 pillars of the YPS agenda. In this paper, disarmament is understood broadly. It includes norms, controls, risk reduction measures, transparency and confidence building measures, reductions and limitations on weapons, post-conflict disarmament, demobilization and reintegration processes, and the preventive governance of emerging technologies to prevent future weaponization. First, it contributes to participation by creating opportunities for meaningful youth engagement in peace and security processes. Second, it contributes to protection by reducing weapons-related risk and their impact on communities. Third, it contributes to prevention through risk reduction measures and efforts to address drivers of violence before conflict escalates. Fourth, it contributes to partnerships by strengthening cooperation among governments, international organizations, civil society, researchers, and youth networks. And it contributes to disengagement and reintegration through post-conflict disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration processes that help prevent relapse into violence. With that overview of why YPS and YDS synergies matter and the paper's main findings, I will now hand over to Yorgo, who will present the paper's recommendations on practical pathways for moving from parallel tracks to sustained collaboration.
Thank you, Sharon. So, next slide, please. So in the rest of the segment, I'll focus, just like Sharon said, on how can we turn these synergies into action, and the paper identifies 3 major bridges. So the narrative bridge is about shifting the story from disarmament as a technical government-owned niche to disarmament as a matter of human security prevention and youth agency. So a few examples include multimedia art competitions, humanitarian disarmament, storytelling, and so on. And for the second bridge, it's really about policy and about creating formal pathways so that youth-generated recommendations actually enter mandates, strategies, and deliberations, and not just get noted and set aside. Examples related to this bridge include the recently published Y4D forum outcome on nuclear risks at the nexus of AI and emerging technologies, the YLF declaration. So these are all concrete examples on how can we use that policy bridge. The third bridge focuses on practice, and it's about translating learning into local action, community resilience, and sustained communities of practice. Examples here include the Generation Buzz, the Nagasaki Peacepreneur Forum, and the African SALW Fellowship. So collectively, these are all examples that demonstrate that action is already happening. These bridges are already being used to turn these synergies into action. Next slide, please. So the paper identifies several gaps. The first one related to the narrative. So technical language and siloed communities make disarmament feel inaccessible to many young people. The second one is focused on policy. In many cases, youth recommendations too often lack formal uptake pathways. They're acknowledged but not acted on. The third one focuses on practice. So funding gaps, mobility constraints, language barriers, and limited mentorship prevent sustained action. The fourth one is institutional. So separate mandates and budgets keep joint work ad hoc. And the last one, accountability. In many cases, youth outputs are not consistently tracked or followed up. And the core risk of this is that the momentum fades when youth contributions cannot be traced to decisions or implementation. Next slide, please. So with that, the paper focuses on 5 major recommendations split into short-term and long-term. So on the short term, from 2 to 4 years ahead, we're aiming, or we recommend, to build a shared evidence base on what actually works. So the examples that we previously mentioned through case studies, tools, and youth-led working groups. The second one is investing in joint skill building, including STEM and dual use modules and microgrants for local training. The third one is shifting the narrative together through youth-led communication, advocacy, and outreach to connected constituencies. And transitioning into the long term, so we would like to actually mainstream the YPS YDN integration into policies, strategies, national action plans, and budget lines. And second, put in place joint tracking, name owners, timelines, milestones, and shared dashboards to actually have accountability on how youth input is actually being tracked and implemented. Next slide, please. So I really want to leave you with 3 main messages here and an action plan. So the first one is disarmament as part of the peace building toolbox. It helps advance YPS outcomes across all of these 5 pillars that we previously mentioned. The second one is that young people are already building the bridge. The challenge is moving from scattered examples to sustained collaboration, resources, and uptake. The third one is the next step is influence. So there's a lot of contributions, but how can we turn these from influence and not just presence? So the recommendations in a way need formal pathways, owners, timelines, and follow-up mechanisms. And in a way, I really hope that this event here today turns the paper into a starting point for awareness building, outreach, and collaboration, and not just a one-off event. So that I'll leave you for the rest of the event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sharon and Yorgo. That was a really informative and insightful presentation. I think I especially enjoyed that 5 recommendations that you shared. And thank you very much, really great job. I think, and I can add that the paper clearly demonstrates that the connections between YPS and YPN are not theoretical, and young people already are building these bridges through policy engagement, community actions, advocacy, education, innovation, and so on and so forth. And I think you really well pointed out that the paper reminds us that the meaningfully of participation is not only being in the room, but it's about having the opportunity to shape decision, influence policies, and contribute to really lasting change. So thank you again. We're going to explore these connections further. So we will now move into our rapid-fire YAF-led expert dialogue, Building the Bridges panel. And moderating this session is Mariana Roa, a Youth4Disarmament alumna, member of Leaders for Tomorrow, and my colleague from YAF Leader Fund participant. And joining her are YAF experts and member state representatives who will bring really diverse perspectives and practical experiences from across regions and sectors. So, Mariana, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Martina, for the kind introduction. It is an honor to be your moderator for this rapid fire dialogue. And one quick invitation before we start, please drop your questions into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screens at any point during this discussion. We'll bring as many questions as we can to our speakers. And speaking of, let me briefly introduce the speakers joining us today. First, we have Cherry. Cherry is an international relations and peace studies student at Ritsameikan Asia Pacific University and a multiplier for the global youth call to action on mental health. Her research and advocacy work focus on the intersection of peace building, reconciliation, and mental health. She also uses creative media such as photojournalism and digital art for her advocacy work and is deeply dedicated to fostering cross-cultural cooperation and meaningful youth participation. We're also joined by Rolando, an economist and peace builder from Panama. He took part in the Generación Paz program organized by UNIREC and has experience in youth advocacy and civic engagement at the local, regional, and global levels. His work focuses on meaningful youth participation, peace building, education, and human rights, with a particular emphasis on violence prevention and empowering young people as positive agents of change. And we're also pleased to be joined by, and maybe excuse my pronunciation, Mr. Amram Essam, counselor at the Permanent Mission of Egypt, and good job on getting past the NPT review conference. And Ms. Laura Katlayanen, first secretary at the Permanent Mission of Finland. She's covering Africa, peacebuilding, and the youth peace and security agenda. And Mr. Song-Yok Kwan, first secretary at the Permanent Mission of the Republic of Korea to the UN, when he has served since August 2024, and he joined the Minister of Foreign Affairs already back in 2014, so over a decade of work. Thank you all for being here today. What a stellar panel. With those introductions in place, let me briefly go over the framework that will guide today's discussion, and that is the 3 bridges already explained by Iago. The 3 operational bridges to turn youth peace and security and youth disarmament and non-proliferation, the YPS, YDN synergies, into real action. First, the narrative bridge, so shifting the story from the disarmament as a technical niche to human security, prevention, and youth agency. The policy bridge, creating formal pathways for youth-generated recommendations to enter mandates, strategies, and deliberations. This is perhaps the bridge where the most intentional work is still needed. And yet we already have some fantastic examples that we're going to hear today. And third, the practice bridge, turning learning into local action and local peace buildings. And examples include Generación Paz, the program Rolando took part in. Key implication that we'll see, and I also already mentioned Yargo, is that real progress depends on making these synergies, the YPS, YDN synergies, systematic, resourced, and traceable, and make them be not the exception, but the norm. So to bring that narrative bridge to life, I'd like to turn first to Cherry. Cherry, over to you.
Hello, everyone, and I'm Cherry, so I'm from Myanmar. I was lucky enough to be selected for the 2025 Youth Multimedia Art Competition that was held in Bangkok. It was basically a celebration of the Shan Fest, which was basically the Southeast Asian Nuclear Weapon-Free Zone Treaty. So it was a field study where we learn about the current landscape of disarmament and the emerging technologies that are being used positively around us. So before this, when we say that we hear about disarmaments, weapons, and peace, we heard usually global leaders, and it feels like it's very cold and distant from us, and that's usually about numbers and military powers. But for young people who are on the ground, and true safety is not just about weapons, it's about whether our community can thrive or not. And this is where the problems lie, and that's why we need a narrative bridge. And art serves as a powerful way to create the narrative that can actually speak to the young people on the ground. It takes a complicated topic and make it something people can see and feel through it. And this is for me and my peers who were selected for the Sean Fest commemoration event. And the advocacy journey didn't just stop in Thailand. And I think this is where we say that the synergies between the YPS framework and the YDN actually meet. So our artworks are also displayed at the NPT review conference in New York as well. And one of our peers from Brunei was invited to the conference and stood in front of a lot of the global diplomats and leaders there and state our concerns over how youths are not left out. Youths are usually left out in this conversation, but our artworks actually reached there. And also after the Bangkok event, most of us found our own unique way of keeping this network alive by creating a discourse on this topic back home. So for example, one of our colleagues, Tony, created an initiative that focused on studying atomic and nuclear energy for the medical use. For me, someone who's in the peace study and also someone who promote cross-cultural facilitator, I share what I learned and saw through the art and used it to start discussions in the classrooms. And this approach basically derived the YPS pillars participation and preventions. Unlike formal ways of reaching out, it is much easier because it's just young people talking to each other. And when we talk peer to peer, like these barriers and the wall basically come down. And in this way, our friends who are completely even outside of the technical experts actually start caring about the issue as well. Of course, there's a long way. The dominant narrative is always has been that disarmament is actually the state security issue. And also for young people who advocate for disarmament, there's still a massive gap. And right now, it's only feel like people who are on the part of joining the epistemic community, like a former researcher or academic area, are the one who got their space in the policy making places. And we really need to change that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cherry. And what a powerful example you said, and something that really spoke to me, what is true safety, about whether or not communities can thrive, and it is something that we can feel, and the importance of bringing the discourse back home. Our next speaker will take us across both the policy and the practical bridges. Rolando, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mariana. In many communities across Latin America, armed violence is not an abstract concept. Children grow up seeing guns in their neighborhoods, hearing gunshots, losing friends or relatives to violence, and consuming digital content that portrayed weapons, violence, money, and power as symbols of success and recognition. The challenge is not only preventing violence once it becomes visible, the challenge is changing aspiration before violence becomes a life path. This is why, through UN LIREC Generación Paz program, I created Buen Pelao, a peace education initiative that works with children in communities affected by armed violence in Panama, using art and sport as tools for peace building and violence prevention. We create alternatives for children. Instead of seeing violence as a source of power, they explore different identities, aspirations, and ways to relate to each other. Through painting, storytelling, and dialogue, they begin to imagine themselves not as future gang members, but as artists, leaders, and peace builders. Buen Pelao believes in the power of partnership. It brings together different actors as local governments, universities, civil society organizations, international partners, artists, volunteers, and communities themselves. And together we work to create practical solutions that help reduce that vulnerability. One lesson learned is that disarmament is also about preventing the conditions that make violence attractive, acceptable, or inevitable. And at the same time, our experience highlight the importance of participating in public policy discussions, and we have worked alongside local governments that recognize violence prevention as a priority. Also, the lessons learned through Buen Pelao have informed my participation in regional policies discussions, including the parliamentary meeting of citizen security in the Americas, also regional dialogues on inclusive governance, development, and meaningful youth participation, and to be part of the validation process of the Central America and the Caribbean roadmap to prevent illicit trafficking and proliferation of arms. In those spaces, I have shared that the most effective peace-building approach is prevention, but prevention is only possible when it is comprehensive, when young people are recognized as key actors, and trust is placed at the center of public action. Peace building must be built through inclusion, shared responsibility, and a strong social cohesion. And we, as young people, we are far from being a threat, and we are strategic partners to building peaceful and resilient regions. Because every young person who chooses hope over violence, dialogue over conflict, and community over exclusion is contributing to a more just, safer, and peaceful future. Thank you.
Thank you, Rolando. And I really have to congratulate you for the amazing work that you're doing of also working with children, creating those spaces where they feel free to explore their identities in different ways and going beyond, as you said, to some of the safe security narratives that shape our Latin American continent, and the importance of youth being a part of policy discourse. Now I'd like to turn to our member state representatives, and quickly for the audience, also feel free to send questions anytime, as we'll have a Q&A segment at the end of this. So going back to our member representatives to reflect on what is that you've heard and maybe share some examples of how you are advancing the YPS, YDN synergies in your countries. So let's start with Amram from Egypt. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mariana. Good morning from New York to everyone. And just to take a moment to congratulate the UNODA for this magnificent event. Also to the Youth and Disarmament champions and alumni. And a tribute to the Republic of Korea for its consistent leadership on advancing the agenda of youth disarmament and non-proliferation. And let me congratulate everyone also for the thematic paper. We went through it and listened with great attention to the presentation, and trying to build the nexus or the operational synergy between the youth peace and security and the youth disarmament and non-proliferation agenda. It just sounds the right thing to do and the natural thing to do. With a view of breaking the silos and ensuring a sync implementation of what is naturally two very mutually reinforcing and complementary tracks of action. I just first want to start with a couple of comments on the remarks by Cherry and Rolando a couple of minutes earlier. And it stood out for me what Cherry mentioned about how sometimes the discussions at the UN seem cold and distant from reality. Egypt has always been looking into discussions at the UN and beyond in investing in meaningful participation of youth as being a natural part of investment in prevention. When it comes to international peace and security and building resilient societies, particularly through the prism of changing and reinforcing the narrative that several of the previous speakers spoke about. Changing the narrative is indeed the key bridge for stimulating more sustained action. And when it comes to this, it is very important to ensure that it is a two-way impact, meaning that the first piece is the dissemination of the practical local knowledge and action to broader global and regional networks, but also the localization and harnessing the power of the regional and international networks to leverage change in narrative at home. Sometimes we feel a little bit of the disconnections, very important and useful discussions that happen at regional and international levels, but there are always some choking points and challenges facing how can we leverage this when we go back at home and to our local networks through the youth advocates and activists. A key important piece of sustainability of action is also on how to usher in the point of transition from being a youth advocate into a young professional that is already involved in the decision design, informing, and making process. I can speak about a couple of things that, as Egypt, we're trying to work on at the current stage. We have already embarked, but sadly not as consistently as we would have loved to do on briefings before and or after major events. The MPT, for example, the review conference of the Program of Action for Small Arms and Light Weapons, that involves key stakeholders from outside the government with a specific focus on youth. The second piece is that we had a successful experience in piloting a project for youth delegates when it comes to our COP delegations at the climate change processes, and we are trying to replicate this into the international peace and security spheres. Of course, the landscape is much wider and much more diverse than when it comes to the climate-focused discussions. But I think that incrementally we can start at least to prioritize a number of areas where we can also replicate this experience, and most certainly disarmament and non-proliferation should be on the top of the lists. The third is the dissemination for the calls of submissions and working papers when it comes to preparation of UN and regional processes, and also important transformative exercises that are happening at the international sphere. So, for example, we have the UN Scientific Panel on the effects of nuclear war now. We have the preparation for the updated study, the comprehensive study on nuclear weapon free zones. And we are conscious of the institutional barriers that sometimes face youth in being able to contribute with their research and perspectives into these submissions and working papers. So from our part, we're also trying to facilitate a process of matchmaking with accredited NGOs at the UN to connect these youth spaces with those who can have the plug into the submission of working papers and other written submissions to ensure further visibility of youth practical action and evidence-based perspectives. And I mean, let me put a major underline under evidence-based from the submissions that we have seen from young people across different processes, whether related to disarmament or not. We have seen how much investment into the evidence-based formulation of arguments is coming from young people, even compared to other practitioners who have been in the field for many, many years and even decades. The fourth and last piece is at the regional level is we have the African Union Youth Peace and Security Strategy, which undergoes periodic updates. And we will be very keen also to give further emphasis to the components on disarmament. We think that at least at the African level, there's still a huge lag when addressing the areas of governance of emerging technologies and international peace and security. But also we need to further reinforce the areas on nuclear weapon-free zones, whether our legacy of the Plendava Treaty in Africa, but also the ongoing work on establishing a nuclear weapon-free zone in the Middle East. And also one of the silos that we need to break and address is how can we connect all these different pieces to the follow-up to the Declaration on Future Generations as part of the outcome of the Pact of the Future. Let me stop here and willing to further engage with questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Amra. And I'm really glad to hear you speak about the transition going from a youth advocate to a youth professional. I think that is something that will definitely resonate with a lot of people here. And it's great to see the many initiatives that IDRIT has taken to incorporate them and many of your good practices, maybe in some other portfolios, into a peace and security disarmament agenda. As well, it's great to hear about the great evidence-based submissions that you've come on the way. Laura, over to you to tell us about some of your reflections.
Thank you, and thank you, colleagues and youth champions and everyone for joining us today. And first of all, I would like to echo the congrats to UNODA and the Y4D alumni for developing this first of a kind paper on the YPS YDN synergies. And thank you also for Cherry and Rolando for bringing the paper to life through your concrete examples, and also for my colleagues online. And I think even creating this space for all of us to come together, I'm not a disarmament expert, I'm a YPS expert, and even now hearing all of you talking about the synergies, I'm filled with ideas of what we can do, bringing these two spaces together. And I think structuring the examples around these three bridges, narrative, practice, and policy, makes the synergies much more tangible. And speaking as someone with experience of YPS policy, I would like to focus especially on the policy bridge. And as it was mentioned before by Emilia, and as many of you know, the connection between YPS and disarmament is already reflected in the first Security Council resolution 2250, more than a decade ago. But yet in practice, there still can be disconnect between these two agendas. And one concrete example of how this synergy can be advanced through policy is Finland's second national action plan on youth, peace and security. We have two national action plans, but the most previous one was launched in December last year. And we all know that lasting peace requires post-conflict measures. And thus our national action plan includes disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration as one of its 5 pillars, and specifically recognizes the need to strengthen young people's role and participation in DDR processes. And what I think is really important, it's not only participation in the processes, but also including in their planning and implementation and the whole design of the process. And I think this shows how YPS frameworks and national action plans can create practical entry points for strengthening youth engagement on disarmament and non-proliferation. In New York, Finland co-chairs, together with Jordan, the group of friends on youth, peace and security. It's a group of 30 plus member states. And I think it provides an important platform for us member states to advance more coherent YPS policy. And it offers an opportunity to further strengthen the YPS YDN synergies through resolutions, statements, and other intergovernmental processes. And I think already now hearing my colleague from Egypt talking about disarmament, I'm about a joint meeting with disarmament and YPS experts, or bringing in the alumni to talk with all of us, and I'm filled with ideas. But also YPS is one of the key themes for Finland's campaign for a non-permanent seat on the UN Security Council in 2029 to 2030. And we launched the campaign earlier this week, so I'm also getting ideas to that. But all in all, we will continue to advocate for this agenda, including stronger synergies between these two agendas and in close partnership with young people. And bringing these two spaces together, like this event today, is essential for all of our work. But all in all, and to conclude, I fully agree with the paper's recommendations that these synergies should be mainstreamed into policy frameworks, and I would strongly encourage all actors to advocate for the inclusion of disarmament and non-proliferation into their YPS national action plans or frameworks or other policy processes. And we all know that, as my colleague from Egypt said, it's a must and it makes sense. So let's do that together, all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lara, and it's great to see you inspired and as you said, full of ideas, and that it's working to see the synergies, that you said, from YPS and YDN being way more tangible. Also, thank you for reflecting on the work that your Finland is doing together with Jordan on the group of friends, and how you can also see spaces for bringing these synergies further, also together with young people. Thank you for that. And now over to Sung. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Mariana. Do you hear me well? Okay. Thank you, Mariana. And I'd like to also thank Charin and Yorgo for their insightful presentations in the previous sessions, as well as Cherry and Rolanda for sharing their valuable experiences. I'd like to also appreciate our colleagues Amur and Laura for their thought-provoking remarks. Having reviewed the paper and listened to our speakers today, I found myself agreeing with many of the key points in the paper. In particular, I appreciated how it presents disarmament through multiple dimensions, not only as the reduction, limitation, or elimination of weapons, but also as a broader set of norms, practices, and cooperative measures that contribute to peace and security. I believe this provides a strong foundation for building meaningful synergies between the Youth Disarmament and Non-Proliferation YDN agenda and the Youth Peace and Security agenda, YPS agenda. I would also offer one brief suggestion regarding the recommendations. While this is already reflected to some extent in the paper, I believe it may be also useful to add one or more two aspects to particularly the follow-up measures, tracking measures. For example, I think future efforts could track which recommendations have been reflected in policies and programs, while also examining why certain recommendations have not yet been implemented and what obstacles have limited their uptake. Such reflections could provide useful lessons for future discussions and action in our Youth4Disarmament settings. Let me also briefly share my country's experience in advancing the synergies between the YPS and YDN. The Republic of Korea strongly believes in the value of investing in young people. Only a few decades ago, we faced significant challenges, as most of you already know. Yet through sustained investment in human potential, particularly in younger generations, we were able to build a prosperous economy, a vibrant democracy, and a dynamic culture. This experience reinforced our belief that investing in youth is an investment in a more peaceful, resilient, and sustainable future. Against this backdrop, the Republic of Korea has led the biennial UN General Assembly First Committee resolution on youth disarmament and non-proliferation since 2019. The resolution highlights the importance of youth engagement, empowerment, and education in advancing disarmament and non-proliferation. In this spirit, we have supported a range of initiatives in partnership with the UNODA, including the first ever Youth4Disarmament Forum held last year, and the third edition of the Youth4Disarmament Champions Program, which will be officially, I believe, launched later in this event. And at the national level, we annually operate the Korean Youth Envoys for Disarmament and Non-Proliferation program. Through lectures, discussions, and policy-oriented research, almost like 30 or 40 participants annually, they deepen their understanding on issues such as nuclear weapons, space security, and the implications of AI in the military domain, while they also developing policy recommendations of their own to our Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We remain committed to supporting meaningful opportunities for young people to contribute to international peace, security, and disarmament efforts. Let me stop here. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sung, for your concrete contribution and suggestions already. I really love to see that. And also thank you for touching upon what the paper also aimed to do, like broadening the definition of disarmament. And for also saying all the great steps that the Republic of Korea is already doing for make this YPS, YDN synergies tangible, come to life, and all the effort and work that your country is doing for that. We know you need to step out shortly, so let me take this opportunity to deeply thank you for joining us today, and to thank you, the Republic of Korea, for continuing to champion Youth4Disarmament in New York, but also around the world. Thank you. So now we'll go off with some questions, and I would like to pose this question to all of our speakers here. What is one concrete step that you would see that's needed to strengthen the YPS YDN synergies, and what is something that you would be willing to do? I think, Laura, you already touched upon some very concrete steps in this, but maybe we'll start with you, Rolando.
Yeah, I think it has been mentioned before, or maybe to emphasize, I think the investment in the capacity building and connected these two agendas will be really great, and also support projects of young people in their community, because I think in many parts of the world, young people are already working in their communities, so investing in them will make their impact increase and also scale their initiative within their countries.
Thank you so much, Rolando. It's So true. Amr, over to you.
Just brief general reflections, and I think I'm very happy to see that there's this cross-regional alignment of perspectives on actually how can we help and what we might think is the right additional things to do. But also one of the things that I can humbly contribute with is that there is a need sooner or later for a youth caucus at the disarmament space. So we have the Youth Disarmament and Non-Proliferation forum. It was very successful. I mean, I have taken part in one of the sessions, and I was stunned by the level of quality of the presentations and the papers submitted. And also we have the fellowships, but in terms in order to be able to ensure the sustainability and the consistency in harnessing the impact, it requires a little bit of an institutional setup, which is not rigid, I mean, because usually the word institutional is coupled with concerns to the lack of flexibility and agility in performance. But the fact that it would be self-organized by young people and administrated will give it actually this sense of flexibility and ability to adapt. And the purpose of the caucus is to organize the different layers and levels of engagement with the different processes happening through the year at the UN or other relevant regional spaces. And this also includes the presentation of written submissions, the actual participation in the events themselves, the work on advocacy surrounding or on the road leading to a specific outcome. We know that it is a bit of a heavy lifting, and it requires so many hands on deck, but we have seen that it had a good impact in other places. I'm very inspired by what I've seen firsthand from the Youth and Children Caucus at the climate change process, for example, which has become a very well established one of the 6 or 7 other caucuses that are presently active and have walked with the process through its evolution side by side by the Women Caucus and the Indigenous Peoples Caucus and the local communities, etc. Also, I want to bring to your attention the work that has been done in advancing the youth peace and security agenda by our very own CCCPA, the Cairo Center for Peacebuilding, for Peacekeeping and Peacebuilding, and its annual S1 forum. There usually, in each and every single edition, there's at least 1 or 2 functions dedicated to the implementation of 2250 and the Youth Peace and Security Agenda. And actually, it's incumbent on me, and how can I also contribute to breaking the silos with the Youth Disarmament and Non-Proliferation Agenda. Thank you.
That is great. Great to see so many spaces that there are where we can contribute to this. And as you say, a lot of cross-regional cooperation, fertile ground for us to work on this. Cherry, over to you. And maybe you can also, because I've seen some questions coming in, so I'm just trying to combine it, share some about tips for people on how can they actually bring this action in their own community and ground it to their own contexts. Thank you.
So I would say the most important here is actually making the young people and also people on the ground see how it is connected to them, because a lot of the time when it comes to the disarmament and peace, it's a very far away concept from them. What we see is more of a sustainable peace and not like the peace that is saying overall. And by seeing the connection that we have between them, and we feel that this is actually concerned with us, this is the issue that's concerned with everyone. And this, by doing this one, is that for us is that we do it through art. We change how people see these things through art, because art is by everyone, for everyone. Anyone can produce art. Nobody have an ownership over art. So this is how one way that we can do it. Another way is basically education. And a lot of programs at UNODA has done this before as well. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sharon. As you say, it is an issue that concerns us all, and art, as you say, it's a great tool to show that. And we have examples from the Asian Youth Multimedia Arts Competition, the Convention Cluster Munition Youth Multimedia Contest, so various ways to go into that. And Laura, over to you. Some short remarks on this. Thank you.
Thank you. I think a lot of really great concrete ideas and steps were already shared, but I think as a homework to me, and maybe Arm too, we should come together with member states and UN and the youth to brainstorm what we can do with this joint space, because even now listening to you, I have so many ideas from the YPS space that could be maybe amplified in the disarmament space, and I'm so it goes vice versa. So if we would bring YPS experts, peacebuilding experts, disarmament experts, young people, and the UN to the same room, I'm sure we will be filled with ideas what we can do with peacebuilding commission, or what we can do with first committee and all of that, because in as member states and as government officials, we love silos. Or we don't love silos, but we tend to fall into silos. So I'm sure if we would just come together and brainstorm for half a day or for 2 hours, we would have so many ideas. So I think concrete step would be to come together, hopefully in person or hybrid, and start making small groups and because for instance, I've never met my colleague from Egypt because we work in different spaces. So I'm happy to connect now and start having those concrete ideas. But thank you so much for bringing us all together.
Thank you so much, Lara. Really our pleasure to bring this space, and thank you for also bringing that enthusiasm that I think it's really now needed more than ever in this disarmament, peace, and security agenda. So to wrapping up, as I know we're short on time, I think across all of today's examples, where through narrative, policies, and practice bridges, we can see that clear topics are cross-cutting. The importance of disarming being a matter of importance to all of us, importance of it not being too technical, but wide in these conversations, the importance of meaningful youth participation, of inclusion. And I really want to stress the importance that disarmament is not only a technical agenda, it is a practical way to build peace and security, to build community, to reduce weapons-related risk. But by connecting it with youth, peace, and security agenda, we made that work even more actionable for institutions, for member states, for youth, and even more grounded in the realities that young people are actually facing nowadays. So I hope you leave as inspired as I am to keep this momentum going and to show what is possible when we build these connections. As Laura said, we break the synergies and break the silos and make the synergies happen. Thank you to our disarmament and youth, peace, and security experts for championing these topics the way you do, and all of you for joining and your questions. Over to you, Martina.
Thank you very much. I'm so impressed by all this panel. Thank you very much to all our distinguished speakers, our fantastic experts. It was really rich and forward-looking discussion. I think it's excellent for all of us to listen to state representatives' advice and solution on youth participation and the youth participation examples on their own. One of the strongest message, I think, which emerges both from the paper and the discussion that we just heard, is that meaningful youth participation requires opportunities, requires sources, and requires pathways to engage. So for many people, the question is, and I have no doubts about it, is not whether they want to contribute to peace, security, and disarmament efforts, but how they can get involved. And now our next segment focuses exactly on this question. So I'm very pleased to introduce the launch of the new Youth4Disarmament Champion Call That's an initiative that supports young leaders through learning opportunities, mentoring, expert exchange, and youth-led action. To introduce this program in more details and share their experiences, I'm delighted to welcome three speakers. Firstly, Mailan Alejandra Ramos Espejel, UNODA Youth4Disarmament alumna, former Youth4Disarmament champion, Mexican activist and young leader. Sana Anala, associate expert of UNODA, and last but not least, Mihailo Matkovic, UNODA Youth4Disarmament alumnus, former Youth4Disarmament champion, and currently the Master of Sciences candidate in Literature and Modernity at University of Edinburgh. So the floor is yours. I also suggest to keep the sequence as listed on the slide. So Mailan, could you start?
Thank you, Martina, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and to all the speakers that have been part of this session. So I'm here to talk to you about this very exciting call that is the Youth4Disarmament Champions. This is a life-changing program. I have been an activist for almost 10 years, and I can say that this program changed absolutely my life and even the career path that I was taking. I was part of the Youth4Disarmament Champions second cohort on 2024, and it was really exciting. So it was a bit different than what this call is going to be. But we share the online component that is one of the most enriching and very exciting part of the call, that you get the chance to talk to professionals, to already seniors in the career in disarmament, and you don't need like to be an expert or anything. Like, everyone knows that you're here to learn, and they are really comprehensive of that and really empathic of that you're starting just your career in disarmament, and it really matters a lot when you are trying to enter into a totally different career path. For example, I have I am pursuing a degree in arts and cultural heritage, so this was something like really distant for me, but this program changed like my empathy and my sensitivity for disarmament. And this online component, like, it is really how to say, like, really easygoing. I had to do it really fast, like to finish the online component really fast, and I never felt like it was overwhelming or anything. The only thing that I notice is that, of course, these are very sensitive topics, and I am very sensitive too. So that's why I developed a personal project that focuses on mental health. So after the online component, we had the chance, like me and other 9 peers, had the chance to come to a New York study visit at the first committee of the United Nations General Assembly, where we had high-level meetings with decision makers like Izumi Nakamitsu, with Marisa Chan, with of course we met Sue, and I even had the chance to meet two of the representatives of my own country in their missions to the United Nations, and they highlighted my participation at Youth4Disarmament, which was really exciting. And of course, the best part was to meet the amazing peers that had been accompanying us throughout all the online process. And these are long-lasting friendships that I still carry to this day, and that are not only like contacts for your careers, but are real friends. And I learned a lot from them. So the most exciting part was, of course, that this was the first time I traveled, the first time I went in an airplane, the first time I traveled to another country. So like, it was a lot of first times, and it really changed like my perspective on how youth can access opportunities and what I wanted for the youth in my own country. So that's why I came back to Mexico, where I'm from, and I developed my project, which is called Desarme Creativo. You can look it also online. And yeah, it was basically some multidisciplinary workshops that includes information, but also arts and also expositions of their art, so that their voices reach further panels and forums that could be more difficult without resources. And this didn't ended here, because this project is still going on. We had some exposure on other countries too, and also on the online activities that we did, like also the promotion of the project, some spotlight stories I had the privilege to write, and that are submitted to the Youth4Disarmament webpage. That is a platform that you can access, and that UNODA's team is really, really accessible with what you share. And they give you also complete freedom to share your own perspectives. Also some other initiatives, like the promotion of the importance of disarmament at the regional youth forums, because this program, something that has is that makes you connect with the people in your region, so that it is more like complete. And this doesn't end when the program ends, even though this program is going to be a bit different. What Youth4Disarmament makes is that it creates a really big and really close community of youth that can access further opportunities. Like, for example, I had the privilege to go to Lima, Peru, for a symposium of women forces of change that also like really impacted me a lot. And also some other publications, and had the privilege to represent UNODA on other forums. So like, I believe that if you're looking for further opportunities, if you are not really sure on how you can connect all of your topics with your own careers, and you want to create some positive changes around the uncertain times that we live, this is what you definitely should apply. And I, of course, recommend it to everyone. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much, Mela. It was really fantastic to hear. Now I would like to ask the next speaker to share a bit more insight. Sana.
Thank you so much. This will be a tough act to follow. I think we're all very excited to hear Malin's experience with the program. I don't know why the slides are changing on their own. Here we go. So I will just give a brief introduction on the Youth4Disarmament Champions 3rd edition. As we just heard from Malin's experience, this is a program that has happened already twice before. So this is the third edition, which is now live online. You can find it on Youth4Disarmament website, and also on our Instagram. You can find the link to apply in the bio. But before we go into the details of the program, I really want to thank our donors, because without the generous funding from 2 of our donors, this program would not be possible. So a big thank you to the government of Republic of Korea and the European Union, who will be supporting the Youth Champions focused on small arms and light weapons and weapons management, ammunition management. So thank you so much for that. Now, what is the Youth4Disarmament Champions program? The United Nations Office for Disarmament Affairs is now calling for the 3rd edition of the Youth4Disarmament Champions program, which is a 1-year innovative learning program. And the goal of the program is really to empower youth to work for disarmament in their communities. And we will be selecting 9 young people between the ages of 18 to 29 to the program. And as we heard about Malin's projects, also this time the youth champions will be working on their own disarmament projects during the program, with the support of UNODA and their own mentors. As I mentioned, who can apply? You have the most important thing is that you have to be 18 to 29 years old. So this is a program for young people at the time of applying. We also really hope for applicants that have some previous knowledge and background in the field of peace, security, disarmament, weapons management, or a similar field. But please don't be disencouraged if you don't have like a direct experience on something like this. We're not looking for someone who has necessarily studied this as their major in university or has done an internship in a specific organization. I think the most important thing is that you have some previous knowledge, some previous background, and that can come from a variety of different sources. And we're not looking for a specific profile of a young person. We're looking for a variety of nine young people, and the experience can come from multiple sources. We also just as much as we want to have young people with some not previous knowledge, we also want to hear what is your idea of a project or a publication that you will be working during this program. What is something that you want to have an impact on? What are some of the themes that you would like to work on? It doesn't have to be a specific work plan with specific dates, but I think the originality and the idea behind your idea of a program, for a project or a publication is the most important one. And I think all of these aspects are important, but I would say the most important thing to make this program a success for yourself is to have a passion and a motivation to be a part of it. So to advance your project during the program, but also to learn more, to network, to put in the work to the online component where you will be learning more about disarmament. I think that is also something that will carry you long after the program ends. So that's something that is very important when applying. And we also ask for a good command of English since the program will be conducted in English. And what does the program include? There will be an online training on disarmament, but also on project management, how to work on your project, how to communicate on your projects, and this will be done by via online courses and webinars. The youth champions will also receive mentorship from UNODA staff or from other mentors identified by UNODA. You will also get to network with your fellow 9 or your fellow 8 youth champions and with the previous cohorts of champions and other Y4D alumni. Some of the champions will also receive a stipend to advance your individual project in the field of disarmament or an opportunity to work on a disarmament-related publication during the program. So as we are looking for 9 individual young people, we are also tailoring the program a bit depending on the specific background, specific goals, and the profile of the champion. So the things offered by the program might not be exactly the same for each champion, but everybody will get kind of like a tailored experience based on what exactly is there, what is something that they want to achieve with their project or with their publication. And there will be at least one trip during the program to an intergovernmental disarmament process or other meeting relevant to the content of the program, where you will get to also present your project and get some feedback on it. And now I would ask you all to take out your phones and scan the QR code and get ready to apply for this program. We have many people here online who have been part of this program or in the past or other UNODA programs. I think I don't want to speak on behalf of anyone, but I think the fact that we are here today with such a strong representation from Y4D alumni shows that these programs really have an impact long after they end. And I would love to see many of you to apply. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Youth4Disarmament at un.org. We accept application until June 28th, so there's almost 3 weeks time. Please apply, or if you know friends, community members, colleagues that would be interested to apply, share the call for applications with them. As I mentioned in the beginning, this is available on Youth4Disarmament website and also on our Instagram at Youth4Disarmament. If you click in the link in bio, it's available there. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Sana, for sharing all those logistic details that we really need to apply. And now our last speaker, so Mihailo, I'm sure you're going to also follow the trend and emphasize the importance of the program and share your experience. Please, the floor is yours. I'm sorry, we are slightly exceeding the schedule, so if you could just cut it a bit, will be very, very appreciated. Mihailo.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, mindful of the time, I'm really just going to quickly kind of share some of the aha moments and my biggest takeaways from this program and some reasons why you should definitely apply. Thank you, Melan, and thank you, Sana, for all of your inputs. I think being in the same generation as Melan, I definitely share every single sentiment that she spoke about today, so I won't repeat her emotions, aha moments, etc., because I was there to witness them, and I'm so proud to call these people my friends, not just my colleagues, as she mentioned. So apart from these like networks that you get to be a part of, I think one very important segment that I noticed during our mandate/learning process was that this educational component and the objective of education was so strong that there was no room for us to be just tokens in the room. And I'm saying this because at the time I was the UN Youth delegate as well, which was kind of helpful in terms of implementing my project, etc. But I think compared to some other quite tokenistic still, unfortunately, programs within the UN and other international organizations, this one is everything. I think the team behind Youth4Disarmament Champions and everything they put in it and how much they care about the topic, which was sensitive and very important in today's uncertain world, I think that shows. And I definitely didn't think there was any room or space for us being just tokens. The educational component was quite strong, and I think everything that we learned opened so many doors. Now, as Melan, I also come from a different background, so another aha moment, so to speak, was definitely how interconnected all of these topics are. So I come from the background of youth worker and trainers in human rights education, so I could see very easily how radicalization among youth is connected to small arms proliferation. Then in some feminist-oriented programs that I participated in, I could quite clearly see how small arms are connected to femicide, how nuclear disarmament is beneficial for ecology, sustainable development, and preservation of nature and indigenous communities as well. So if you're really interested to see how interconnected disarmament, not just nuclear disarmament, because that's what usually people associate with it, myself included, I have to admit, but how many things there are to actually work on and how many things need young people to work on them, then this is the program for you. And last, I just wanted to say, coming from academia and literary studies especially, even there, we have apocalyptic fiction, we have semiotic research. We have so many career paths, even within academia, that are quite closely connected to everything we did as champions, that I just, it opened so many doors. And currently I'm working on the research on over-sexualization of small arms in media and pop culture. And I'm pretty certain whatever background you come from, you can benefit from this experience and the program can benefit from you. So please apply. So yeah, I'll finish here.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for being so strict with the timing. Really appreciate. And yeah, thank you all to our speakers for introducing this exciting opportunity. We are approaching now the end of the event, and I would like to invite everyone to reflect on a simple but very important question: what comes next? Well, to know some of your answers, we would like now to launch a short interactive poll. So we invite you to select the action you are most likely to take part in after today's event, whether is it a reading or sharing the paper, applying for the Youth4Disarmament Champions program or others. And while you are submitting your responses, I would like to take a moment to thank all those who made today's event possible. So please vote. And my sincere thanks go to our speakers, our moderators, our presenters, and the contributors to the thematic paper, to the Youth4Disarmament alumni who experience and expertise helped shape this work, and to the UNODA team and colleagues behind the organization of today's launch. Thank you very much. Without you, the event would not be possible. So we're gonna give one last minute, and I would be happy to see the answers of the poll. Perfect. So here we have the answers. I hope everyone can see them. Thank you very much to those who participated in the poll. So we can see that almost 79% would like to apply for the UN Youth4Disarmament Champions program. Good luck, everyone. Definitely the last panel was really encouraging to everyone. Thank you very much again. Great. Yeah, share papers, recommendations with my organization, network, and community. Excellent. Fantastic. And connect with other YAF actors working on peace, security, and disarmament. This is really important. Perfect. So feel free to reflect on those answers. I think that the responses we have to clearly reflect exactly what the thematic paper calls for, and the launch for the application also call for. So moving from dialogue to action, and from those parallel efforts to sustained collaboration. Yes, and well, we have still a couple of minutes, so let me say that on behalf of all the Youth4Disarmament team, we really hope that today's launch marks the beginning, not the conclusion of this conversation. We really encourage you to read and share the thematic paper. Please stay connected with the Youth4Disarmament. We are really pleased to know that so many of you would like to become a Youth4Disarmament champion. Please share it with your friends. There are many people who need to learn about this fantastic opportunity. And well, one more time, on behalf of UNODA Youth4Disarmament team, thank you for joining us today. We wish you a wonderful rest of the day. And I'm happy to conclude this event. So thank you very much, everyone. Great job.